There's a hidden trap most people fall into every single day, a trap so subtle that by the time you realize it, it has already stolen hours of your life, drained your energy, and left your mind spinning in circles. I'm talking about overthinking. That endless, exhausting mental loop where every decision, every thought, every conversation gets dissected, analyzed, and debated until you feel paralyzed, frozen, and frustrated. You've been there, haven't you? Waking up with a mental to-do list so long that even the simplest choices feel impossible. You check your phone, scroll, and suddenly an hour has gone by. You think, I'll just take 5 minutes to plan, and before you know it, the day has passed, and the decisions you needed to make are still unresolved. But what if I told you that overthinking isn't a flaw? That in fact, it's your brain trying to protect you from chaos, uncertainty, and mistakes. That realization is the first step toward freedom. It's not about fighting your thoughts, it's about learning the flow of your mind, redirecting it, and using it as a tool rather than a trap. This is the flow mindset, a principle so powerful it can change how you experience work, relationships, and even your own creativity. Imagine a world where your mind is not a battlefield but a river, constantly moving, adaptable, yet never stagnant. Decisions happen naturally. Ideas emerge effortlessly. Focus deepens. Actions become instinctive. That's the promise of the flow mindset. But here's the catch. Most people never reach it because they confuse thinking with action, analysis with understanding, and planning with living. They get trapped in micro-decisions, in what ifs, in the endless spiral of self-doubt. Here's the truth, your mind is not your enemy, but your habits and your environment can make it feel like one. Every time you react to a notification, every time you ruminate over what someone said, every time you imagine every possible failure before trying something, your brain reinforces the overthinking loop. And yet, flow is not about stopping thought. It's about orchestrating it, guiding it, creating a rhythm where the mind works with you, not against you. The difference between a person stuck in overthinking and someone operating in flow is stark. The overthinker hesitates, procrastinates, and doubts. The flow practitioner moves with precision, clarity, and purpose. The contrast is like night and day, like being trapped in a storm versus sailing smoothly across calm waters. So how do you get there? How do you step out of the mental maze and into a state where your mind, body, and intentions align seamlessly? Before we dive into the system, I want to ask you to do something that shows your commitment. Make sure to subscribe to Discipline and Destiny, like this video, and comment below the habit you most want to create in your life. Doing this not only supports the channel but also signals to yourself that you are ready to take action and transform your mind. Let's go. The journey toward mastering overthinking begins with understanding 3 fundamental principles: awareness, structure, and iteration. First, awareness. You must recognize the pattern of your overthinking, not judge it, not fight it, but observe it like a scientist studying a phenomenon. When did it begin today? Which thoughts are real decisions that matter, and which are imagined obstacles? Second, structure. Overthinking thrives in chaos. When your day, your tasks, your priorities are unstructured, your mind creates loops to fill the gaps. By creating frameworks, fixed times for reflection, decision-making protocols, and boundaries for deep focus, you channel mental energy where it counts. Third, iteration. Flow is not a switch you flip, it's a skill you cultivate. You practice, adjust, and refine. You test methods, notice what triggers overthinking, and systematically remove friction. And here's the thing, every day you delay, every hour you let the loop run, your potential diminishes. Flow is not a luxury. It's a necessity for anyone who wants to master their focus, produce exceptional work, and live without mental chaos. By the end of this video, you'll have a concrete system to interrupt overthinking, redirect your thoughts, and embrace the flow mindset in your life. You'll no longer be a spectator to your own mind. You'll be the conductor, orchestrating clarity, momentum, and progress. And yes, it will require practice, patience, and persistence. But the reward? A life where decisions come effortlessly, creativity flourishes, and your mind becomes a source of liberation rather than imprisonment. Imagine waking up tomorrow with a clear plan, knowing exactly what your priorities are, and having the mental energy to execute them without hesitation. That's not a dream. That's the flow mindset. It's waiting for you. Now, let's go deeper into the hidden mechanics of overthinking and why it traps so many people. Think about the last time your mind was racing, replaying every detail of a conversation, predicting every possible outcome, or imagining what could go wrong. That endless loop doesn't just waste time. It drains energy, clouds judgment, and keeps you from taking decisive action. Science calls this cognitive overload. Every unnecessary thought consumes glucose in your brain, releases stress hormones, and leaves you mentally exhausted. But here's the critical insight most people miss. Overthinking itself is not your enemy. It's your mind's way of trying to protect you from mistakes, uncertainty, and chaos. The problem is not that you think too much, it's that you think without structure. Without guidance, your mind becomes a hamster wheel, spinning endlessly in circles. This is where the flow mindset comes in. The difference between someone trapped in overthinking and someone operating in flow is like night and day. The overthinker hesitates, doubts, procrastinates, and loses momentum. The flow practitioner, however, moves with clarity, precision, and purpose. Decisions are made naturally. Ideas emerge effortlessly. Action becomes seamless. Here's how you begin building that system. First, awareness. The very first step to stopping overthinking is noticing your patterns. Observe the recurring thoughts that pull you into loops. Identify the triggers, the situations, people, or times of day when your mind tends to spiral. This is not judgment, it is recognition. Second, implement mental triage. Not every thought deserves your attention. Ask yourself 3 questions. Is this actionable? Is this relevant? Will it matter in the long term? Thoughts that fail any of these tests are released, freeing mental space. Third, adopt structured decision-making. Overthinking thrives in uncertainty. When you leave decisions open, your brain fills the void with endless possibilities. By pre-deciding your responses to recurring situations, whether that's your morning routine, work tasks, or emails, you remove friction and prevent unnecessary loops. Fourth, ritualized focus. Flow is cultivated, not stumbled upon. Establishing fixed times for deep work, reflection, and creative tasks creates a framework where your mind can perform optimally. Distractions are removed, priorities are clear, and mental energy is preserved. Now, contrast this with the average approach. Most people wait for clarity to appear spontaneously. They hope their minds will eventually settle. Rarely does this happen. The gap between intention and action widens, and overthinking compounds. But by deliberately guiding your thoughts and structuring your mental energy, you transform the mind from a trap into a tool. Let's visualize an example. Imagine you need to create a presentation. An overthinker spends hours agonizing over wording, visuals, and potential audience reactions, trapped in loops, making little progress. A flow practitioner, using the mindset principles above, lists essential tasks, blocks focus time, executes, and iterates based on results. Momentum is built, clarity emerges, and action becomes effortless. Contrast is powerful because it highlights the cost of overthinking. Energy wasted, opportunities missed, stress accumulated. By adopting the flow mindset, you reduce cognitive friction, allowing your brain to operate efficiently. But remember, this is not instant. Flow is a skill you develop. Each day you practice awareness, structured thinking, and ritualized focus, neural pathways are rewired. Over time, overthinking diminishes, momentum increases, and decisions become instinctive. Microhabits compound, and your mental state shifts. Finally, understand that flow is not limited to work. It impacts creativity, relationships, and overall life satisfaction. Overthinking leaks into every area, subtly eroding energy and clarity. By applying the principles universally, you transform not just what you accomplish but how you experience life itself. You stop being a spectator to your mind and start orchestrating it. Every thought, every decision, every action becomes intentional. Now that you understand the mechanics of overthinking and the contrast between paralysis and flow, let's explore the first real tool to break the cycle, the practice of intentional observation. This isn't mindfulness in the vague sense. It's a systematic method to capture your thoughts without judgment. Every time a spiraling thought appears, you pause and label it. This is worry about the future, or this is overanalyzing a conversation. By naming it, you separate yourself from the thought. You are no longer the thought, you are the observer. This subtle shift changes everything. Suddenly, your mind isn't a storm raging uncontrollably, it's a river you can navigate. Here's a real-life example. Imagine waking up with a barrage of thoughts. Did I send the right email? Did I say the wrong thing yesterday? What if the meeting goes poorly? Instead of letting these questions spin endlessly, you write them down, assign them a time slot for action, or dismiss them if irrelevant. This simple act interrupts the feedback loop that fuels overthinking. The second tool is the pre-decision framework. Overthinking loves open-ended choices. When your brain faces infinite possibilities, it burns energy analyzing every outcome. You can neutralize this by creating rules in advance. For instance, deciding that every morning, your first hour is reserved solely for priority tasks removes endless micro-decisions. The brain no longer asks, "What should I do first?" The answer is predetermined. When applied across daily habits, exercise, work, personal projects, the pre-decision framework reduces friction, frees mental energy, and lays the foundation for flow. Next comes the habit of micro-focus sessions. Flow cannot thrive in distraction. You must deliberately carve time where your mind is completely immersed in one task. No notifications, no multitasking, no interruptions. Start small, 15 to 30 minutes, and gradually expand. These sessions train your brain to sustain focus, while also teaching it the rhythm of entering flow. Contrast this with the typical approach: scattered attention, checking phones, juggling multiple tasks, and feeling busy without actual progress. The difference is night and day. Now, consider the role of iteration. Flow is not a switch, it's a skill developed over time. Each time you catch yourself overthinking and redirect your attention, you reinforce the neural pathways that favor clarity over chaos. Each successfully completed task without spiraling strengthens your confidence and sense of control. Small wins compound into larger victories. This is where the mindset truly shifts. The person who previously wasted hours analyzing a decision now moves efficiently, guided by structure, observation, and ritualized focus. Another key aspect is managing mental energy, not just time. Overthinking drains willpower because it consumes resources the brain needs for action. By adopting structured observation, pre-decisions, and focus sessions, you preserve energy for decisions that matter. You stop letting trivial thoughts hijack your cognitive bandwidth. Here's where contrast becomes even more apparent. Overthinkers wake up mentally exhausted, their day shaped by random, reactive thoughts. Flow practitioners wake up with purpose, mental clarity, and a clear roadmap for execution. Their mind, once chaotic, now operates like a well-tuned instrument. And the beauty of this system is that it is not rigid, it adapts. Life is unpredictable, distractions inevitable, challenges unavoidable. But when you have observation, pre-decisions, micro-focus sessions, and iterative practice, your response to uncertainty becomes instinctive. You no longer panic, ruminate, or spiral. Flow becomes your default. In essence, this section marks the beginning of your transformation. By applying these tools consistently, you shift from overthinking as a drain on your life to a structured, deliberate, and productive force. And remember, this isn't about perfection. It's about consistency, awareness, and mastery of your own mental patterns. Each day is a step toward mental liberation. Now that you have a grasp of observation, pre-decisions, and micro-focus, let's explore the next layer of the flow mindset, embracing structured variability. This may sound like a contradiction, structure and variability, but it's one of the most powerful tools for breaking overthinking. Overthinkers believe that variety keeps life interesting. But the truth is, when your mind faces too many options, every decision becomes a mental negotiation. Should I meditate or exercise first? Which project should I tackle? Should I respond to that email or leave it for later? Each question, no matter how small, fuels the spiraling loop. Structured variability solves this by giving your brain predictable rhythms with controlled choices. For example, You might have a morning routine with a fixed start time and order, but allow small variations within the session, like alternating between reading and journaling. The structure provides stability. The variability prevents stagnation. This balance trains your brain to focus while still adapting, a hallmark of flow. Next, we must confront one of the most destructive habits of overthinkers: perfectionism disguised as preparation. You've likely experienced this. You spend hours tweaking a presentation, analyzing every word, or imagining every possible reaction. You tell yourself, "I'm just preparing," but what really happens is your mind is trapped in analysis paralysis. Flow practitioners approach the same task differently. They acknowledge that perfect conditions will never exist, that mistakes are inevitable, and that action, imperfect but deliberate, is the ultimate teacher. Contrast this mindset. Overthinkers stall. Flow practitioners iterate and progress. Every decision, every action, becomes a learning moment, not a source of anxiety. Let's bring this closer to your daily life. Suppose you're creating content, planning a project, or having an important conversation. The overthinker mentally simulates every worst-case scenario, wasting energy and time. The flow practitioner uses structured planning. They outline the essentials, block time, and commit to execution. Variability is controlled within a clear framework so the mind doesn't spiral. Over time, this repeated practice rewires neural pathways, reducing cognitive friction. Another critical component is strategic reflection. Flow is not mindless action. It's deliberate, iterative action. At the end of your day or week, you review outcomes, note recurring distractions, and adjust your frameworks. This reflection is short, structured, and focused on improvement rather than judgment. Contrast this with overthinkers' reflection, which often turns into rumination, replaying mistakes, imagining outcomes that didn't happen, and creating unnecessary stress. Reflection in flow is productive. Rumination is destructive. Now, let's address social and environmental triggers, which overthinkers often underestimate. Your surroundings, habits, and even the people you interact with influence whether your mind spirals or flows. Flow practitioners design environments that minimize decision fatigue, clean workspaces, limited notifications, structured meetings, and clearly defined roles for tasks. They eliminate mental friction before it begins. Overthinkers, by contrast, react to chaos in their environment, giving their minds endless fuel for spirals. Finally, understand that flow is contagious and cumulative. Each successfully executed session, each structured day, reinforces neural pathways, increases confidence, and creates momentum. Over time, the mind itself starts anticipating flow states. You no longer have to try to think clearly. The system supports effortless clarity. Every small win compounds, reducing overthinking and increasing productivity, creativity, and mental clarity. The transformation is profound. Your mind, once a source of frustration, becomes an ally. You operate with purpose, presence, and precision. And the best part? This mindset doesn't just improve work or productivity, it transforms your life, relationships, and overall mental well-being. Now we enter one of the most transformative aspects of the flow mindset: pre-solving obstacles before they appear. This is where overthinkers fail most dramatically. Life is unpredictable. Your child gets sick. A project gets delayed. Technology fails. Emails pile up. Traffic jams happen. Each unexpected situation can trigger a mental spiral, as your brain scrambles to find solutions in the moment. Overthinkers react, panic, or freeze. Flow practitioners, however, anticipate. They predecide how they will respond to common disruptions, removing the chaos from the moment and preserving mental energy. For example, if you know you often skip workouts when travel or social obligations interfere, you create contingency plans. A 15-minute hotel room routine, a silent meditation session in a park, or a portable task checklist. When the situation arises, there is no mental negotiation, execution happens automatically. Contrast this with reactive thinking, where indecision and guilt derail momentum. The difference is monumental. Another crucial tool is chunking tasks into ultra-specific sequences. Overthinking thrives when the mind faces ambiguity. "I need to work on my project" leaves the brain wandering, analyzing every possibility, questioning priorities. Instead, chunking divides tasks into precise, sequential steps. First, outline the 3 main points. Second, write the introduction. Third, draft 200 words on point 1. Every micro-action has clarity. Decisions vanish because they were already made in advance, leaving your mind free to focus on execution rather than debate. This is how overthinkers become flow practitioners, by removing mental friction at every level. The next element is identity-based reinforcement. Flow is not just what you do, it's who you become. When you consistently act within these structured frameworks, your mind begins to internalize the behavior. Over time, you are no longer thinking about acting, you simply act because that is now your identity. You are no longer a person who struggles with decisions. You are someone who operates with clarity and purpose. Contrast this with overthinkers, who continually question their abilities, intentions, and outcomes. The gap between identity and action is where momentum dies. One of the most underestimated strategies is environmental alignment. Your physical, digital, and social environment constantly communicates to your brain where the focus is allowed. Notifications, clutter, and interruptions fuel overthinking. Flow practitioners engineer their surroundings to support uninterrupted action. Clean workspaces, scheduled check-ins, limited digital distractions, and clear task boundaries. These small changes drastically reduce the likelihood of spirals. Now consider the compound effect of these practices. Every day you pre-solve obstacles, chunk tasks, reinforce identity, and align your environment. Your brain strengthens the neural circuits that favor clarity, focus, and momentum. Over time, these circuits dominate, making overthinking less frequent and less intense. Flow becomes your default mode. Even when challenges arise, your mind knows how to respond, and energy is preserved for meaningful work rather than wasted on analysis paralysis. Finally, embrace intentional micro-reflection. At the end of each day, review not just what you accomplished, but how your mind responded to challenges. Did pre-decisions work? Did sequences run smoothly? Were distractions minimized? This reflection is short, structured, and actionable. Contrast it with overthinking reflection, which obsesses over the past, ruminates on mistakes, and creates unnecessary stress. By reviewing, iterating, and reinforcing systems, you take control of your mind, your actions, and ultimately your life. Flow, unlike overthinking, compounds. Small victories build confidence, neural pathways strengthen, and mental energy becomes consistent rather than depleted. Over time, what once felt impossible, decision-making, focus, creative work, becomes effortless. Remember, the consistency that scares others is the only consistency worth having. If you've watched this far, thank you very much for your attention. See you in the next video.